All right, guys, I got a couple more things I want to read. The next thing I want to read is the latest article in my series, The Woke Mind, which is a series that I'm doing specifically on my Substack. If you go to the Substack, which again is carlin.substack.com, you'll see it right up in the top, the Woke Mind series. Only got a couple things in it so far because we just started it. But I wanted to continue the point that I was making about the woke left being obsessed with power as one of the primary things they covet. And we're going to use that to talk about what they fear most. So let me put this article in the chat if you want to follow along. The woke left fears being out of control more than anything else. How the woke left are like narcissists and how they are different. It is a misnomer and a misunderstanding to call everyone on the woke left narcissists. I really wish conservatives would stop doing it. Saying everyone I disagree with has a mental illness is no different than saying everyone I disagree with is a racist. It's exactly the same. They are not mentally ill. The people who have taught you that they are mentally ill have done you a disservice and have lied to you, probably because they themselves are not the brightest crayons in the box and they didn't bother to look into it to really understand what was going on. So we need to start dispensing with this notion. Because if the woke left really is just a bunch of mentally ill people, guess what, guys? That means y'all are losing to a lot of mentally ill people. Does that feel good to you? Does it feel good to think, man, they're crazy, man, they're insane, and I'm getting my ass kicked by them anyway? They're not mentally ill. They're not. They just have different values, which I explained in the first piece of my series. Let's read. In the previous article in the series, we discussed how power is the thing the woke left covets more than anything else. That means that everything they do is done with the goal of attaining power over you, over me, and anyone else who might stand in their way. Always make the assumption that every single thing they say and do is only and exclusively about gaining power in some way. We'll talk about all the ways they do that in a future piece. When you look at it through this lens, it will change how you perceive their actions and your understanding of why they behave the way they do. Why did they change the dictionary definition of racism? To gain power by controlling the language. Why are they teaching third graders critical race theory? To gain power by destabilizing the system and creating more racial divisions. Why are they transing the kids in school? To gain power by making a generation permanently reliant on medicalization and sterilizing people before they can have biological children, because ultimately they do want to abolish the family, but that's way more than I wanted to talk about in this particular article. Why do they refuse to define what a woman is? To gain power by controlling the language. And as an aside, they really like that language one. Controlling the language gives them the power to control your thought. Controlling your thought is how they control your speech and your behaviors. Jenny's getting inky with it says, for anyone confused why white supremacy equals capitalism, it's because capitalism has been seen as being created by whites and therefore is a white system, hence systemic racism. Well, it's a little bit different than that, but basically true. Basically true. But it is a little bit different than that. Capitalism existed before white people existed. Remember, back to the first article, they believed that white people was created and racism was created in 1619. Capitalism existed before that. So close and a good overview explanation if you need an introduction, but it's a little bit more complicated. But I appreciate the super chat, Jenny. Thank you. Their obsession with power tells us what they fear the most. If you ever want to know what someone fears most, you have to look at what they covet. Just look at the opposite of the thing that they covet, and you'll know what they fear. If a person covets money, They probably fear a lack of security or stability because that's what most people are buying with money is security and stability. If a person covets love, they probably fear being alone. If a person covets attention, they probably fear social ostracization. If a person covets being the smartest person in the room, they probably fear being wrong, especially in public. And if a person covets power, that means they deeply fear being out of control. The woke left fear being taken out of control more than almost anything else. Authoritarians are authoritarians because they have a primal need to control everyone and everything around them. Many people call the woke left narcissistic. When they do, it's probably this attribute that they are identifying, the need to be in control. I want to be very careful to say that not every person on the far left has narcissistic personality disorder. The term narcissist is thrown around far too easily. I strongly believe the conservative right does themselves a massive disservice anytime they say liberalism is a mental disorder. It's dismissive and undermines the true reasons they are doing what they're doing. Many of them don't have the disorder, but that doesn't mean they don't have traits of the disorder. And I want to pause here and say every single person listening right now has narcissistic traits. You do. I do. Everyone listening on every platform I'm streaming on does. Everyone on Twitter does. Everyone in the House of Representatives does. Of more than most people, they do. Everyone has traits of narcissism, guys. If we had no traits of narcissism, then we would never take care of ourselves. We wouldn't care about how we looked. We wouldn't care about how we present to the world. We wouldn't care about getting that promotion. We wouldn't care about getting that pay raise or getting that new car or getting that new house with the big kitchen that we can entertain in or any of those things. If we didn't have traits of narcissism, we wouldn't care about any of those things. We've got to stop demonizing these things. Just because you care about yourself and you want to put your ideas out into the world does not make you narcissistic. It makes you a human being. Speaking our truth, our value, is one of the core things. Expressing ourselves, putting our ideas out and saying what I believe matters and what I think matters and what I want to do matters. That's part of what makes us who we are. The more willing you are to speak your ideas into the world, the more self-esteem you have. If you are unwilling to express yourself because you're afraid, I don't want to be perceived as a narcissist, you're going to have lower self-esteem and self-confidence. There's nothing wrong with being proud of your work. There's nothing wrong with loving what you do. There's nothing wrong with wanting to show up in the world. Conservatives care more about appearance than almost any other people on the planet. Is that narcissistic? No, I think it's just what they care about. So I really want to make the distinction. Just because someone wants their ideas adopted, or even if someone is afraid of being taken out of control, that does not mean they have a personality disorder. It does not mean they're mentally ill. And if you treat a problem that doesn't exist, you're not going to be successful in winning because you're not treating the right thing. That's what people see when they call the woke left narcissists. They correctly identify that people on the woke left share this common trait with people who legitimately do have narcissistic personality disorder. They need to be in control at all times. People with narcissistic personality disorder are made through a combination of nature and nurture. In order to develop NPD, one must be born with specific genetic traits that make them susceptible to it, like if they had a narcissist as a parent. However, they must also experience a childhood in which they did not have their needs met. For example, their mother might deny them love, They may experience emotional or physical abuse, or perhaps they're homeless and didn't have their most basic shelter. Because they don't have their needs met during a time in their life when they rely on others to meet their needs, children need adults to help them in this regard. They develop a profound need to control their environment and every person in it as a coping mechanism. People who have narcissistic personality disorder, guys, it's a sad thing. It doesn't make them an evil person. Sometimes they do evil things. They do. They really do. But it is a sad thing that they have the disorder in the first place. Because the reason they have the disorder is because they were not cared for when they were kids, when they needed to be cared for. They didn't have their basic needs met. People think that people become narcissists because they get too much praise. No, 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 no. They don't become narcissists because their parents fawn over them or they got a trophy every time. That's not it. You become a narcissist, a real one, when you don't have your basic needs met in childhood. And then in response to that, you develop this as a coping mechanism. They believe, many of them subconsciously, because this is not always a conscious thought, they believe that when they are in control, they can't be hurt because they were hurt in childhood. They experienced some sort of trauma by not having their needs met in childhood. And then they develop narcissistic personality disorder as a way to cope with that so it never happens again. This is fundamentally different than the woke left, which we're going to talk about in a second. Narcissists are obsessed with control, probably because they were raised by people who are also obsessed with control, because oftentimes their own parents are narcissists. And because they were taken out of control by those people during their formidable years. I think that meant formative years. Meant formative years. Again, I'm not the best copy editor in the world. They cope with this by making sure it never happens again. I don't know if I believe anyone claiming to be a narcissist that says they're in recovery. I don't know if I believe that. I don't think narcissists can change, for the most part. They don't want to change. They think they're great just the way they are. The woke left is just as afraid of losing control as a narcissist is, but it's for different reasons. It's not because they're coping with childhood trauma for most of them. Some of them are, but not all, or not even a large percent, I don't think. It's because they were never taught self-ownership or self-empowerment in the first place. The irony is that while many people call people on the woke left narcissists, I would argue that they are not narcissistic enough. There are traits of narcissism that can be healthy and productive when channeled properly. A belief in self is one of those traits. Narcissists believe that they are the best in the room at what they do, and they'll hang on to that perception even if they're mediocre. How others perceive them means nothing. They are obviously wrong and not able to understand the narcissist's talent because they themselves are mediocre. That's how the narcissist sees it. And oftentimes, it is this belief in self and air of confidence that propels them to real world success. A lot of CEOs are CEOs because they are narcissists. Same with politicians, same with presidents. Their belief in self is the thing that drives them to the very highest levels of their career. Donald Trump, 100% a narcissist. The reason that Donald Trump became president is because he believed he could, and because the narcissism would not allow him to take in any information from anyone who said he couldn't. He couldn't see it. Or if he could see it, he was like, those people are just stupid, or those people are dumb, or they don't know what they're talking about. Donald Trump, absolutely a narcissist. I know people don't like me to say this, but it's the truth. He would not have become president had he not been a narcissist. He wouldn't have gotten as successful as he did if he wasn't a narcissist. This is the way this stuff works. That's not to say, and again, I don't think that narcissists are like bad people. I'm not making a value judgment. I'm not saying Donald Trump is an evil narcissist. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that Donald Trump didn't have the best of relationships with his mother. That's documented. And because of that, he didn't have some of his needs met in childhood. And by the way, Donald Trump's parents are probably have some stuff going on as well. And because of all those things, he developed the disorder that propelled him to the success that he has. It is important to understand this. A real narcissist doesn't look towards mommy government to take care of them. They probably had to take care of themselves when they were a kid, and so they learned how to do it. They will cheat and steal to meet their goals if they have to. Why would they need the state to provide for them? They probably view every government bureaucrat as grossly incompetent. At most, they view the mechanisms of government as a way to give them more power, more wealth, more status. Does that sound like any politician you know? Probably all of them. The woke left are different. They believe that they can only live their best life if mommy government gives it to them. They want to be taken care of. All of their policies are designed to make people reliant on the state to live. People only believe in collectivism when they reject individualism and meritocracy. One rejects individualism and meritocracy when one doesn't have the self-worth to believe they can succeed on their own. And because they don't believe they can succeed on their own, that means they don't believe others can either. They project their insecurities onto people because identifying it in themselves would cut at the core of their being. And even worse than that, they project their insecurities onto others in the most demeaning ways. Have you ever noticed how many liberal white women truly believe no black people can succeed on their own without the help and aid of liberal white women? That sounds kind of racist, doesn't it? The woke left needs to believe they are in control over people because they struggle to control themselves. Why are so many of them extremely overweight? They struggle to control themselves. Why do so many of them look like they're on drugs? They struggle to control themselves. Why do so many of them burst into an angry rage over a tweet they don't like? I think you know the answer to that. They are deeply insecure people, lacking in self-worth and self-ownership, but they don't want to acknowledge it in themselves. And so they project those things onto other people and then swoop in as the superhero in order to save them with their pride flags and their BLM fists and their puberty blockers given out like candy to toddlers. Practically speaking, hanging on to control allows them to achieve their goal of ushering in a mommy government that will take care of all of us in the image of Marx. Without power, they can't do what's necessary for their cultural revolution, so it is beneficial on a highly practical level. But what I want you to understand is that there are deeper reasons they do those things. They need to exert authoritarian control over others because they do not exert it over themselves. So, what does that mean? If your enemies fear being taken out of control, that means that's one of the weapons you use against them. Find ways to make them feel as though they are out of control. It's not so much about legitimate power, such as becoming the CEO of a company or getting elected to a school board, although those will work too. I'm talking about something much more crafty. Mind games. Get in their head, and you win. If a person believes they have been taken out of control, believe being the operative word, they will make mistakes that you can exploit in order to beat them. How do you take them out of control? Well, the next series in the article will teach you just that. So guys, if you enjoyed this article, this is part of my Woke Mind series. And if you want to help me keep these articles free for everyone, because I would really love to be able to do that, then I would ask for your support by signing up for a subscription, a monthly or annual paid subscription on my Substack, which is carlin.substack.com. And you can go to carlin.substack.com/subscribe. And I have a goal. I want to get 100 new paid monthly subscribers this month so that I can continue to keep all of these articles for free. So if you value the work I'm doing, if you value the analysis that I'm giving you, if it's helping you to understand the situation so you can approach it a little bit differently, I will guide you through this. I got a whole series of these articles planned. Please help me out. $5 a month, less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks. In fact, Starbucks coffee is like $10 now. Like Starbucks has gone crazy. And that really helps me out. And that'll keep it free for everyone. And I really do appreciate it. Savrit says, we project our current boundaries of perception in real time into the world and onto others. This is a placebo racism effect infecting the public. That's exactly right. Every flaw that we see in other people, it exists in ourselves. People don't understand this. Every flaw that you see in someone else, that's something that exists in you. You project your insecurities onto other people. The woke left do not have control over themselves. They know they don't have control over themselves. They don't believe in themselves. They never learned resiliency. They never learned self-empowerment. That's why they're looking for everyone else and their mother to do things for them. It's why they complain all the time when they aren't promoted for no good reason. They don't have control over themselves, and so they assume that no one else has control over themselves, which is why they want as much power as possible so that they can control everything and get things handed to them and get everything they need from mommy and daddy government because they can't go out and get it on their own. That's what they believe. And so they think everyone else needs that too.